So before we start with the Form Workspace, I want to talk to everybody about the actual functionality of the Form Workspace. We worked a little with this a little bit with the previous project, but I want to give you a much better understanding of what this means. Within the Form Workspace is essentially it is the sculpting workspace for Fusion. Blender works like this in its entirety, or at least that's the main goal for it, with more of like what we've been doing, dimensional modeling, parametric dimensional modeling as an add-on. So far, we have largely just been dimensional parametric modeling, making squares, cylinders, things like that, making with dimensions, making more geometric, and altering them with like adding or subtracting faces using cutting tools, things like that. We touched on the sculpting space a little bit last time, but I want to get a little bit more in depth in talking about it. And within that, it is essentially the T-Spline modeling space. There's a different type of modeling that works with I think SolidWorks and Rhino 3D work with what's called NURBS. It's just a different type of modeling. Don't worry about it. Essentially, T-spline modeling is thinking of your work as a big net. We have been working so far a little bit with this, and essentially everything is a spline. We've talked about and we've used the fit point spline, which is the curve shape where you create points and you create curves based on that, where then you also have the benefit of things like the handlebars, which allow you to alter everything, either the size of the curvature, the depth of the curvature, things like that. T-spline modeling is a bit different, but it's still based off of this spline modeling computations. How this functions is think of your work first off as a flat sheet, or better yet, think of this as a net, like a fishing net, if you will. On this, you have your lines, and the lines are edges, which kind of makes sense because it's all at the edge, or going through, which doesn't really make as much sense, but it's called an edge. Everywhere those interact or intersect, these points are all vertexes or vertices for plural. These are all anywhere these make a connection. That can be in the middle or at the edge. The final thing is what's between. These are your faces. So you have vertex, edge, and faces. The reason it's called a T-spline is your spline, when it hits an edge, it comes to a T. Very clever. That's all there is. That's not going to be on a quiz or anything. Just if you come across that term, T-spline modeling, I don't know what the hell that is. You've been working with it. That's a T-spline model. So how this functions, though, is you can control by any number of these options. Meaning, you can grab and morph things by vertices, by edges, by faces, or by all of them in between. You can grab them, you can push them up and down, you can stretch them back and forth, you can scale them larger and smaller, you can even extrude them, depending on the things. But the reason I said think of this as like a big net, what happens when you pull on something? You can pull upwards, and all of that follows with. So you can control them individually, like just grabbing that point, or you have some settings to where you can affect that a little bit more smoothly, so it affects a larger span in a bit smoother manner. You can stretch out how this affects everything, but they are all interconnected. That's the main thing. All of this stuff is interconnected. So as you move one thing, it pulls and stretches everything else. So no matter if you take this whole shape, turn it into a morphed, I was going to say Pringle, and then I went a little bit too far with it. But this whole thing can be morphed, everything in between, but it's all going to interconnect. However you decide to alter that, it's all going to interconnect. So this T-spline modeling means everything is interconnected, just like when we've been working with regular fit point splines. So how we work with this is first we go into the modeling workspace. So let me switch over to Fusion. We enter the Form Workspace by going onto the little pink ball, plate symbol. Now, what I just described here is a plane. You have a variety of different options here. You can still work with sketches and all this sort of thing, but you have a box tool, making a basic like box form. Plane, I don't like how they're arranged. I don't know why they're arranged this way. A plane, so a T-spline plane, a cylinder, and as we talked about last time, a cylinder isn't a solid shape. It's more of an edge and you fill it in. You have a quad ball, which is like a box that's been filled up to a spherical shape. So you can see that it has more of like front, top, side shape faces. There's literally individual faces, and you can build with that. And then there's your standard sphere, which is more of like aligned like a globe. You know, you have longitudinal lines and latitudinal lines where your edges all come together at the top, at the north and south poles. Now, when you go down to create, yes, there's more. You have like a torus, which is your donut shape. You have the also that.
How is he doing that?
You have your pipe tool, which works the same way. Build on a path, and it will automatically generate, or it'll work the same way as we did before. Draw a path, a sketch line, a fit point spline, whatever, and it will generate a shape around that. Only now you have the benefit of being able to modify and manipulate those. You can also take sketches and extrude, revolve, sweep, and loft the same way, but you can see from the mouse over images, you have all of these individual faces that you can then alter. So you have so much more control with this, but it's so much easier to get very, very lost with this. So the main thing is, I just want you to keep in mind, everything can be interconnected. You can tweak and manipulate all of these, but it's really easy to get lost in this. So one of the main things I want you to keep in mind, when we're modeling anything in this workspace, keep it simple and add complexity later. Meaning, add the bare minimum of faces, all these divisions, keep it simple, keep it less, get your general shape built, then add complexity. That's the main thing. So as a general thing, what I was just talking about, let me create a plane here. So plane, just like we've done before, I select the plane tool, select what plane I want to build this on, X, Y. You have your toolbox. You want to center or 2-point, just like building a rectangle before. I'm going to keep it as a center point, smack in the middle. You see as I make it bigger and wider, exactly like we've done before. I can either click it in or type it in numerically. You just tab over to the two different sizes, whatever you want. We'll just leave it there. Don't hit enter. When you click that in, now you have a face. I can add with these sliders, I can add faces in one direction. I can add and subtract faces in the other. This is what I mean by, I got all of these here. Keep it simple, and you can work a little more easily. Let's keep it at like 3 and 3, something like that. That'll work easily. Now, we have symmetry, and that's something you can play with later, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I hit OK. The main other tool we're going to be working with this project, where do my markers go? Is the default one over modify, edit form. This is the one that allows you to do exactly that, all this manipulating. When I click this, see a pretty complex looking toolbox come up, but one of the things I want you to focus on is this section where it says selection filter. You have the vertex selection, and you see when I click that, all the little points get highlighted. Now I can select individually, or I can draw a selection box around, and I can select more. I'll talk about all the little tools that just show up there in a minute. When I select my edges, I can't select the faces, but I can select the edges. Select an individual one, or double click, and it will select all along that line. By faces, I can select a single one, or selection box, and I can select multiples, or like anything else, press and hold Control, and you can click and select individual ones. They do not have to be adjacent. They can be not connected. I forgot the good word for that one. Or just leave it as all the things, and you can select all the things however the hell you want to select. Whatever. Within these tools, and I'll keep it on face for the moment, just in the center, you have this gimbal, all of these different tools. You can isolate these from at the top line here, which is transform mode, means multi or just moving things left, right, up, down, front, and back. But you also have, in addition to arrows, as I drag them front and back, or up and down, and you can see how the whole thing warps. I also have, those allow me to only move it in a single direction at once. These floating squares in between is the free transform. That's your pan. That's your grabbing, and you can move in any two, or you can move in your two directions, like in this one, the Z and the X axis, so up, down, left, right. So I can move it in both directions at once. Again, you can really get overwhelmed with this, but that's why I want to take you through these simple ones. So you got just those simple ones. Now I go over to rotation. This can allow you to exactly rotate. Of course, you do not want this to self-intersect, but that can happen. Rotate allows you to select any dimension around the X, around the Y, around the Z. The last one is scale. And you can see these little lines. They're straight out, and then there's the little curved corner, like a little tiny fillet floating. It's in all three directions, just like your origin planes. These are your scales. The flat ones, be it horizontal or vertical, is your one-dimensional scale. Or if you accidentally select two of them, it's doing it for twice. Up and down, left and right, or the corner there is two-dimensional scale. So it's going to go up and down and left and right at the same time. Or if I orbit over and it's like over here, like say the XY plane looking one, it's going to grow and shrink just right there. In the center, you see when I mouse over the center, those three triangles show up around my dot. That is your uniform scale. That just scales the entire selection up and down at the same rate. Or if you leave the transform selection at all the things, now you have every one of them at your disposal. But that's what I mean by you could get very quickly overwhelmed, and I don't really like that all of the little gimbal tools, all the little tools stay so small. It's hard to keep them isolated. So if you get overwhelmed, go to the toolbox and just isolate, okay, I only want to be able to move, or I only want to be able to rotate, or I only want to be able to scale. Until you get the hang of it, you might want to isolate those options. Once you do, leave it as all the things, and you can have a little bit faster workflow. Those are the main things we're working with here, but know that you can do so much more with this. But one of the main issues is right now, this is simply, albeit super warped, it is only a thickness thick. There's no dimension to this. This is not a solid object. Because think of like when you're in the sketch workspace, you've just drawn a two-dimensional thing. You haven't actually added like a three-dimensional dimension to it, like with extrude or sweep or whatever you're going to use with. Not really the same, but kind of sort of, in that this is only that surface thickness thick. There's no dimension to it. There's ways we can do that. We can either thicken it, so it's kind of like unshelling the object. So right now it's hollow, and we can add thickness all around. Or we could try to cap this and turn it into a solid object as it is using the cap tool. But right now, I just want to show you how to modify these things, like it's showing using the form edit tools. The last thing would be finish form. Now, this is where you get the errors in that, oh, this thing just turned into a nightmare. So when I go to finish form, I'm getting errors. And that's because, and as it says, your T-Spline failed to convert. So you know what the hell a T-Spline is now. It's asking you either go back and keep working, or you're just going to it's not going to delete it, but it's not going to finish processing. So you can return. But what it's showing here, it says, edges or faces may be crossing, review in box mode. Crossing means they've just, instead of staying outward and like they are, they've intersected. And that doesn't make for a three-dimensional object. So as I orbit around, you can see, because I started with that square and I kind of went bigger than it, it's just going past itself. And that is shown by this red area. And it's shown as kind of like this modeled looking surface because it's showing like two separate objects occupy, or two of the same shape objects occupying the same space. That's just Fusion's way of showing that issue. And what it's asking here in review in box mode is you have options because it's all looking roundy and everything. You can simplify that by the default tool is display mode or under utilities, display mode. And it allows you to change this, the looks of this from this like nice, sleek, curvy looking thing. Let's select the whole thing and change it to what it's asking box mode. You only have these options here, box mode. That changes it just to a more geometric version. And if you show, and the final side, smooth, in between is showing both. You can see a ghost of the box mode, and you can see the smoothie side on the inside. And you can see where the issue is right here. It's just self-intersecting. Let's stick it as just box mode. It might be a little bit easier to deal with. And all that's asking you to do is, all right, let's go back to edit form. And let's try grabbing by vertex just that corner and dragging it downwards so they're no longer self-intersecting. That might fix it. I don't know if it's going to fix all of it, but that was one of them. Hit OK. Go back to display mode, curvy. Let's try. It worked. So I'm just untangling those surfaces. And the default showing is it's got this golden surface on the inside. That's just denoting that when I open up the bodies folder over here, see how it's got that orange partial triangle, or triangle, that's not the shape at all, partial cylinder? That's the symbol for a surface that has no dimension. It's just a surface, an incomplete object. So that is the incredibly basic rundown of the Form Workspace. We will do some more work with actually like putting some dimensions, some thickness, adding some actual function to this in a moment, but I just wanted to walk you through the extreme basics of the Form Workspace, just knowing that how these tools function. The main tool is your edit form. That's the one that really lets you morph things around individually, all that. How to fix an error of self-intersecting faces or whatever's. How you can go back and forth to finish form, which is bringing you back to the solid parametric modeling workspace like we've been working with all semester. The one thing I want to leave you on with this part is look down at your history bar. There is only the one thing captured. Working in the Form Workspace, just like working in the Sketch Workspace, does not capture linear history. I can do more things to this. So like I could, I don't know, just whatever. I'll make a cylinder somewhere in there and like extrude it outward, and that's going to end up being like an extrusion or something to that effect. And it adds an additional feature there. It adds an additional thing. But everything you do to that form does not get captured. So while you still can go back in, right-click, edit form, and I can go back in and work on this, anything, it doesn't add an additional tool feature. So there is no like reprocessing and everything outside of just I made a change to that whole shape. So anything you do beyond that will make potentially severe alterations. On this bit, the reason it's showing like this weird modeled surface is because it's showing a ghost, and because there is no history to reference, anything you do will change this. But if I go to like edit form again, I'm just going to make a quick change. And let's say like by vertex, and I squish this down a little bit, you see this oddball ghost that's showing? That is because there's no history captured. That's how Fusion shows you at least where you were and where you are now. So you at least have some visual representation of history. You at least have some reference. Luckily, I didn't intersect anything, so I can still go back to finish form. My weirdo protrusion cylinder is still there. There we are. So that is the extreme basics of T-Spline modeling. the form modeling workspace. We'll come back and do something else.